Yeah, I don't care about that.
No.
My name is Henrik, I'm an alcoholic. Could everybody please be seated? Or at least shut up. Welcome back, all of you. I hope you enjoyed your lunch. Please keep in mind that AA is having a get-together here in the room next door. Just a few practical things before we go on. We still have some dinner tickets for sale at the info desk. Smoking is still absolutely prohibited. You're still absolutely doing it. I found this one outside on the ground. Please be noticed. It will be tested for fingerprints and DNA. I will get you. Now please help us keep it clean outside. Thank you. That's it for now, ladies. It's all yours. Take it away.
Thank you, Henrik. Well, we just done the fifth step. And for the first time, I've seen the truth about myself. And it's like I've been to the doctor and I've had my diagnosis set. You know, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? Because I went to the doctors and I asked people, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? And that's, you know, what the bedevilments. I have problems with personal relationships. I cannot control my emotions. I'm a victim to misery and depression. What's wrong with me? And I have the diagnosis here. I've seen the truth, that I'm selfish and self-centered, and that is the root of my problems. So here I have the diagnosis, and for the first time I've seen the truth about myself. And that is, you know, I'm delighted, but I'm not very happy with what I've seen, you know. And I see so many people having, they have a spiritual experience here, because the spiritual experience really starts here, by seeing the truth, but that they stop here. They had the diagnosis, the doctor has given them a recipe, do this and you will get well. But the doctor doesn't follow them home to see if they follow the recipe. But you know, if I don't do anything about this, I will remain stuck in self, and I will go back to drinking. For me, it was a revelation to understand that this is where the work starts. I have the diagnosis now. I've seen the truth about myself. And then, after I've done this fifth step, immediately, this is a part of the fifth step, to go home and find a place where I can be alone with God for an hour. And I thank God from the bottom of my heart that I now know Him better. Why do I know Him better? Because I have seen what is blocking me from Him, and how that has manifested in my life. And how I have tried to manage everything and everybody around me. And I do this. I tell the women I work with, go down on your knees, or if you don't want to go down on your knees, just say this. Thank you, God, from the bottom of your heart that you now know Him better. Because that's what the book says. And go through the first 5 proposals and ask if you have omitted anything. So go through the first 5 steps. Am I clear about my alcoholism? Am I really clear about my alcoholism? Have I taken step 2? Have I come to believe that there is a power greater than myself? Have I really taken that decision in step 3? To continue this work and this way of life? And have I made an honest inventory of myself? And have I seen the truth? Do I now know what's wrong with me? you know. For we are building an arch through which we shall walk a free man at last. Is our work solid so far? Are the stones properly in place? What stones? The foundation stone is the first step. And the cornerstone is the second step. And the keystone is the third step. Have we skimmed on the cement put into the foundation? Have we tried to make mortar without sand? Am I really clear of the work I've done so far? And then it comes. If you can answer to your satisfaction, then look at step 6. Now we are at step 6. We have emphasized willingness as being indispensable. Are you now ready to let God remove from you all the things that you have admitted are objectionable? And I mean, I have been sitting there admitting that I've been selfish, self-centered, I've been lying, I've been cheating, I've been manipulating. Am I now willing to let God remove this? And I mean, it's only alcoholics who will say, no, I think I would like to keep some stuff. How can I be completely honest, you know? But it says, are you now ready? Completely ready to let God remove them? Because you can't, I can't. If I could have changed myself, I would have done it long time ago. I cannot work on my character defects, but I must be willing to participate by being study and practice the rest of the steps. That is how God can remove my character defects and my selfishness and self-centeredness. Can He now take them all, every one? Am I really ready now? If I still cling to something, I will not let go. I ask God to help me to be willing. That's a 6-step prayer. And if I can answer to my satisfaction all this, yes, I'm ready. I'm ready to let God change me. Because if I don't change, I will remain powerless and I will try and manage my own life again and I will go back to drinking. That's for sure. Or I will have a miserable life. And when ready, we say something like this. My Creator, I'm now willing that you should have all of me, good and bad. Good and bad. Remember, I could be kind, I could be precious, I could be to get my will. But I could, on the other hand, be, if that didn't work, I tried something else. But it was always about getting my will through. Take everything, good and bad. I pray that you now remove from me every single defect of character which stands in the way of my usefulness to you and my fellows. It's not about me at all anymore. It's about how can I be useful to God and to the people around me. Grant me strength as I go out from here to do your bidding. And here comes the Amen. As Audrey talked about before, it's been all a long prayer between the 3rd step and the 7th step. And here I give all of me to God. I know what my mission is, and it says that in the 3rd step, keep close to Him and perform His work well. And I will have everything that I need. Not all that I want, but everything that I need. And if I've done this, I have completed step 7. Very simple. Either you are ready or you're not. It's very simple. You can't be stuck on step 6. Either you're ready or you're not. You have seen the truth. Do you like what you see? Do you know that? Do you understand that that is your problem? I mean, are you ready? It's very simple. Are you ready or are you not? And we need strength to go out and start to do all the amends. Give me strength to clean up the mess that I've made by living on self-will. And self-will has run riot with me. And this was very clear for me that I didn't understand that the work started in step 6. That was a completely new decision that I made, you know. This is where the work starts. Let God change me and be willing. I have to participate. God doesn't do for me what I can do. But I don't work on my character defects. I will change if I follow the precise and exact what the book says. Directions. Okay, Audrey?
Okay. I love how simply she explains this. And we do hear oftentimes people say that I'm stuck on step 6 or I'm working on step 7. And what's interesting about the last line that she read, it says, we have then completed step 7. You're done. You made a contract or a covenant in that 3rd step. You were willing to go to any lengths to get sober. You began that process through prayer and action. In the 4th and 5th step, the 6th step, we reaffirm that willingness. Are you still willing to go to any lengths, having seen what you've seen? And if you have a good sponsor, she showed you, or he showed you, everything there was to see at that time, and rubbed your face in those character defects so that you got a good dose of what you are, right? Because if I don't see something as being what the book calls objectionable, I don't want it removed. But when I see the detriment of my character defects, I get more willing to have those things removed. So when they ask me, am I still willing? The answer is yes. I'm even more willing now to go to any lengths. I've seen what self-will running the show looks like. So it tells me that I've completed step 7 and I've signed off on the contract. Right? So I'm getting ready to take some more action. So just when you think you've done something in AA, they're going to tell you, get ready. you haven't done much yet. Step 6 and 7 are really important, and they're often overlooked in our fellowship because they are, essentially 2 paragraphs in our book. In other literature, they're going to refer to these steps as what separates the men from the boys, the girls from the women. And there's a lot of people in our fellowship that are playing with recovery, and these are the kinds of things that it takes to set aside playtime and take this very, very seriously. A life and death matter. So it goes on to say, now we need more action. So if you're wondering when to address your 8-step list and when to start making those amends, it says now we need more action, which means now, right? At once. It says we have a list of persons we've harmed and to whom we're willing to make amends. Where do we get that? Straight out of that inventory. As we're going through this stuff, I'm making a list of people that I'm going to owe these amends to because I'm very clear on how I've harmed them. It says now we go out, there's that word again, to our fellows and repair the damage done in the past. It talks about an 8-step prayer. It says if we haven't the will to do this, we ask until it comes. When you see the words we ask in the book, it's a prayer. So if I've got some amends that I'm unwilling to make in that moment, I'm going to continue to ask for the willingness until it comes. And I can tell you from personal experience, it comes. I wasn't really willing to make a few of them, but as the momentum began to build through this amends process and the freer I got, the more willing I was to set aside my sensitive ego, because that's what it was, that blocked me from making amends to everyone on my list. It says we attempt to sweep away the debris which is accumulated out of our effort to live on self-will. So the book is going to remind me again, where did the problem stem from in the first place? It wasn't these situations caused by other people. It was my attempt to live on self-will that got me in trouble. It says, remember, it was agreed at the beginning we would go to any lengths for victory over drinking, victory over alcohol. And I have to kind of ask myself, what lengths was I willing to go to get another drink? I was willing to go to any length. I would run you down if I had to, if you stood between me and a drink. And I have to have that same mentality and sobriety that I'm willing to go to any lengths to make these amends, to go help others, to do what the book is asking me to do. Then the book is going to go through and talk about a couple of qualifications for making amends. Sometimes we want to be forgiven. Sometimes we want to get rid of a guilty feeling. And it's going to talk about proper motives and improper motives. Me wanting to feel better and not be embarrassed anymore is not a proper motive. Me feeling guilty is a selfish motive. I didn't know that for a while in recovery. It had to be explained to me. But what they're going to tell me is that my amends process is in order for me to get free so that I can stay connected to God. Why? So I can help you. See how that works? So if you slide over across the page on 77, it says our real purpose is to fit ourselves to be of maximum service to God and the people about us. I thought I was getting sober so I could be okay. Turns out I'm getting sober so that I can be of service to Him and the people about me. Right? So the first qualification I'm going to look at when I'm getting ready to make amends and I'm pulling out that 8-step list, it says, but our man is sure to be impressed with a sincere desire to set right the wrong. Where does a sincere desire come from? A good fifth step, right? How do I word this? A sincere desire does not come from somebody telling me I have to make an amend. Have you ever been at the playground and seen small children that are acting up, and one of them is ugly to the other one, and somebody's mom steps in and says, you go tell him you're sorry right now for pushing him. You ever seen how that goes? Okay. And that little kid walks over and says, sorry, and walks off. Right? Is that a sincere desire to set right the wrong? No. And people know when you're sincere, and they know when you're not. Right? So it's important to do a thorough inventory and a thorough fifth step to gain that sincerity in your amends. He says he's going to be more interested in a demonstration of goodwill than in our talk of spiritual discoveries. Have you ever fallen victim to that one? You want to explain things away in your amends? The good news is I found God, so all is well. Do you think they care about that? No. I don't have any credibility at this point anyway. So it's a waste of breath for me to tell you how spiritual I am all of a sudden, rather than do what the book asked me to do, which is give you a demonstration of goodwill. So when I'm making amends to you, and I'm letting you know how I've harmed you and asking you if there's any other ways I've harmed you that I'm not seeing at this moment, I'm going to ask you a more important question, and that's going to be, what can I do to make it right? And whatever you tell me that is what we're going to do. And we're not just going to do it in that moment. We're going to continue to do that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. So it's really important for me not to just make an apology, but to actually amend the situation with you. Most people think that the amends is the conversation that happens between me and that individual in that moment. And it's not. That's the approach. The amends is what happens when I walk away from that conversation and how I continue to treat you moving forward. My demonstration to you for my wrongs that I've caused. The second qualification is a little further down on the page. It says, we go to Him in a helpful and forgiving spirit, confessing our former ill feeling and expressing our regret. That's one thing that I make sure that I do when I make amends with people, is to let them know I regret treating you the way that I've treated you. I acknowledge the ways in which that I have harmed you, and may even ask you if there's something that I'm missing. And it gives that person an opportunity to clear the air and to put it all on paper for me. I love that the very first person that they're going to discuss, because they're going to talk about how to approach the people that we still don't like. They're going to talk about financial amends, amends around infidelity, amends with people who won't speak to us or see us. But the very first one they're going to approach is, how do we do this with the man we hated? Because that's the question, isn't it? When you're going over that amends list and you're thinking, oh, I'm willing to make all these amends, but I hate some of these people. because I'm still calculating what you've done to me in my mind. And the big book is crystal clear on what we could do about that. It says, though we may have acquired a better attitude toward him, we're still not keen about admitting our faults. Why? Because our ego is still at play, right? It says, nevertheless, and here's the direction, with a person we dislike, we take the bit in our teeth. That means we do it regardless of how we feel about it, right? And I got to tell you, I've made some hard amends in my life, and I've made some very, easy is not the right word, some very loving amends with family members who just were so delighted to see me get sober and encouraged me and, very supportive. There's nothing more freeing than making an amends to somebody that you can't stand. That somebody that has had much ill feeling towards you. Make an amends like that, one that's really difficult, and watch how free you get. I love that I can make amends to my family and they, encouraged me and we're glad you're sober. Let us know how we can be helpful. Love you. And I got in front of some people that I had horribly wronged and didn't like them at all and still had a little resistance in my heart, but I did it anyway. And I've never been more free in my life than to walk away from an amends like that. That's why it's important not to hang on to all that stuff. I'll get to that one later. I'll get to it later. Start praying for the willingness now. It's going to give me some direction on what that conversation looks like and what do I do when I sit down and make an amends. And right off the bat, it's going to tell me under no condition do we criticize such a person or argue. It's difficult, isn't it? When you're used to pleading your case and you're used to assigning percentages of blame. Is anybody else like that? I'll accept 30% of the blame, but 70%'s on you. Right? It's time to get free of all of it. Which means that whatever it is that you've done to me, I'm not going to bring it up. I'm not going to discuss it at all. I'm not even going to hint at it. And for some of us, it's very difficult to do that. But it tells me under no condition, which means even you. Right? This one over here likes to talk about being special and set apart, and I've got my own little variation of things, and I so identify with that. Right? They call it terminal uniqueness. That's what they call it. Because I think my case is different. You don't understand, so let me explain to you the ways in which I am different. Then you will see, and you will get on my team. Because that's always my objective. I need you to get on my team. I'm not getting on yours, but you better get on mine. It's a treat. And it says that we tell him we will never get over drinking until we've done our utmost to straighten out the past. We're there to sweep off our side of the street. Is this sounding repetitive to you? Right? Because this is what Bill does. He writes the same thing in a variation of ways. It says that his faults are not discussed. We stick to our own. Here's a cool promise from the amends process. If our manner is calm, frank, and open, we will be gratified with the result. Here's the good news. No matter what the result is. Right? We may still not care much for each other. But we've cleared the air, and when I lay my head down at night, that damage that I've caused is no longer blocking me and God. That's the objective, right? Sometimes we think that we can move forward in this process and overlook step 9. I can assure you that will never be the case. I cannot move forward in the 4th dimension when I'm dragging the wreckage of my past back behind me in the 3rd dimension. It doesn't work that way. I'm getting ready to train for a race. Do you think I can run with weights over my head for very long? No. I've got to be willing to throw those things down no matter what it costs me. And more often than not, it just costs me my pride. That's really what it's going to cost me. So am I willing to set that stuff aside? Right? Am I willing to be understanding rather than be understood? That's a hard one, isn't it? I need you to feel where I'm coming from. So we can process this together. And there's nothing more silly. It says, rarely do we fail to make satisfactory progress. Our former enemies sometimes praise what we are doing and wish us well. Occasionally they'll offer assistance. It should not matter, however, if someone does throw us out of his office. We've made our demonstration, done our part, it's water over the dam. And you're going to hear that question from men and women you sponsor. Well, what happens when they don't forgive you? Nothing. You've already been forgiven by God. You're not there to seek forgiveness anyway. You're there to right your wrong by a demonstration of goodwill. If they forgive you, what a blessing. If they don't, you'll survive. It's okay. I'm just there to take the action. I'm not there to control the outcome. And we like to do that. We want to try to steer the conversations in the direction that we need them to go. This is another opportunity for me to get my hands off of it. And it's difficult to do that when you're used to being the actor running the show and controlling everything, to just lay out the facts, tell them that you regret what you've done, ask them what you can do to make it right, and leave it alone. Right? I'm just going to talk about most alcoholics owe money. I love that statement. Most alcoholics owe money. It's as though we have been irresponsible. It says we do not dodge our creditors, and it's going to tell us what to do in these conversations. And a lot of times, there may be some of you that don't owe money. Maybe you were fortunate financially to not ever get in that situation. So sometimes when we read this stuff, we think, well, that's not me, so I'm skipping it. And don't do that. The people that you sponsor will owe money. The people that you sponsor will have infidelity issues. So just because it may not be your experience, you still need to know so that you can steer them in the right direction. It's going to go on to talk about arranging the best deal we can. Right? So if I owe, Peter $5,000 and I go to make an amends to him, I might not have $5,000 to pay off right then and there. But I'm not going to show up without money in hand. Right? And I'm going to arrange the best deal I can with him. I'm going to ask him, is it acceptable to you if I can pay you $100 every paycheck until this is paid off? And I'm going to leave the ball in his court for him to decide if that's acceptable. And if it's not, we're going to have to arrange something else. But I'm not going to control it. And a lot of times I'll wait until I have all the money so I can go and feel good about what I'm doing. No, a little humility wouldn't hurt me. To go to him and say, I don't have it all, but here's what I can do. Can we move forward with this? And then I'm going to make those payments every single paycheck. It says we must lose our fear of creditors no matter how far we have to go, for we're liable to drink if we're afraid to face them. Why? The book is going to consistently speak about stuff like this. It's because I can't continue to live a double life. I'm going to move on with my sobriety and feel good about everything, but I'm going to deny Peter the $5,000 that I owe him. No, it won't work that way, I guarantee you. While I continue to buy things for me with money that I owe him. So whose money is that really? That's Peter's money that I'm continuing to spend on me. And we sometimes don't think this stuff is all that important. And that's a mistake, to buy into that delusion that I can continue on in sobriety without practicing spiritual principles. I'm just going to talk about criminal offenses. And it says, all those on 79, it says, although these reparations take innumerable forms, there are some general principles which we find guiding. They're going to give us 4 prayers going through the amends process, and this is the first one. I love that it's going to remind us one more time. Reminding ourselves we have decided to go to any lengths to find a spiritual experience, we ask that we be given strength and direction to do the right thing, no matter what the personal consequences may be. Might want to underline that. No matter what the personal consequences may be. We may lose our position or reputation or face jail, but we are willing. We have to be. We must not shrink at anything. Those of you that know Dr. Bob's story, you know where he fell short. And you know what happened to him. This is an experience, it's a fact that's happened time and time again. How many people do you know that have gone through the work and gotten right up to this point and said, I'm good. I make 1 or 2 amends, lose momentum, and sit down in the back of the room, and all of a sudden I'm heading out the back door. Why? Because I'm continuing to live the way I want to live, right? And it says that we have to be. Not everybody has to be, but an alcoholic who wants to remain sober, happy, and free has to continue on with this process. You remember in the end days of your drinking what it was like when your world got real narrow? Do you know what I mean by that? It got real small. I can't go in that part of town because I might run into those people who know about that thing, right? I can't be in these situations because it's too uncomfortable. I can't show up to be with my family, and if I do, I have to dodge these couple of people because I've got some issues between them. That tightening of our spirit, that when we live in a very, very small world that's created by self-will, it won't suffice in sobriety. It just won't. The book continues to talk about growing in understanding and effectiveness in the 10th step. I can't do that when my world starts to crush in on my spirit. Does that make sense? And I see people do it time and time again to their detriment. And it's going to go on to talk about domestic troubles and infidelity and how do I handle this. And here's the thing. There's many, many situations around family issues. As a sponsor, if I don't have the experience that you're coming to me with, I'm going to find another person in the fellowship that does, and we're going to sit down and talk about it. Talk about the spiritual principles that came into play. We're going to talk about what works, what doesn't work, because everyone needs a definitive answer. Well, I've had an extramarital affair. Should I tell my spouse? No one's here to judge and tell you what you can and can't do, but we're going to base this off some experience of people who have done this a little bit longer than we have, right? And the book is going to be real clear that in a general way, if somebody knows about our affairs, can we admit that? Yes. In detail, probably not a good idea. But can we admit our wrongs? Yes. If they don't know, do I get to go and tell them? Should I go and tell them? It's going to, again, give us some general principles. Not always, we think. If I feel guilty, if I continue to use Peter as an example, if Peter and I are married and I have an affair, and I go to Margareta, who would be my sponsor, and say, I've had an affair and I feel guilty, so I want to tell Peter so I can get it off my chest. Does that sound like a selfless motive? No, it sounds like I'm guilty and I want to feel better at his expense. Right? So I'm not saying one way's right and one way's wrong, but I'm saying bring God into this situation. Before you start making decisions, bring your sponsor in, bring some people from your group if you'd like to, who have a little more experience than you. But first and foremost, I would get real quiet in meditation, real quiet in prayer, and seek those answers and see, what is my motive? And it's a big question that I pose to myself in my sobriety to this day. What's my real motive? Right? So just something to think about. And there's again prayers for that on 82. It says each might pray about it, having the other one's happiness uppermost in mind. There's going to be a ton of prayers throughout this book. And sometimes, we don't have any quote-unquote family problems. There's been no big disruption, no big drama, no anything like that. And we fall victim to the delusion that, well, I'm not drinking anymore, so everything should be fine at home. All is well. And then we find out it's not. And for some of us, it's a shocker, because I thought that alcohol was the problem. Turns out it's not. It says if we have no such complication, there's plenty we should do at home. Who knew? Sometimes we hear an alcoholic say the only thing he needs to do is keep sober. Have you heard that? Sponsor a bunch of people, you'll hear it. Certainly he must keep sober, for there'll be no home if he doesn't, but he is a long way from making good to the wife or parents for years he is so shockingly treated. I got to tell you, when I got sober and did my first fifth step, I saw I was very harmful to my family. I was negligent, I was manipulative, I was arrogant, things like that. I could see a lot of that stuff. Over the years, God has taken me through some of the depths of my character defects, and I'm much more clear today how harmful I have been to my family. Right? And it's a continual process of me seeing me, because I see God more. Right? So I get to continue on with this process. But it says the alcoholic is like a tornado roaring his way through the lives of the others. Did anybody else read this and think, well, that's not really me? Yeah. I was like, well, in my mind, that was somebody who was loud and cocky and arrogant and overbearing. And I wasn't. I was very shy, very quiet. But what I also learned was I was very deceitful. Right? Some of you come in the room and we know you're here. We are clear on it. Because you are bossing everybody around and telling them what to do. And it's very obvious, right? The way that I come in is I come in quietly through the back door. I stand in the corner. I observe the room. And then I begin to manipulate and deceive you all. So it was a little bit harder for me to see that I was a tornado roaring my way through the lives of others. But the reality is, it doesn't matter what end of the spectrum you're on. Our character defects are what's at play. It's not the bourbon. I was mistaken. It says selfish and inconsiderate habits have kept the home in turmoil. Notice it isn't saying anything about alcohol. It continues to speak to me as me being the problem. It says we feel a man is unthinking when he says that sobriety is enough. And interestingly enough, on page 83, it talks about family reconstruction and gives us precise directions. But it says there's a long period of reconstruction ahead. And I love it when people ask me, well, how long is a long period of reconstruction? Like they want a definitive answer. In 3 months, my family will be okay. Okay, I can live with that. They're wanting that certain time frame. And I think it's crystal clear. It says a long period of reconstruction. I don't know what that's going to look like for you, but God does. But here's what it does tell me. We have to take the lead. When I got sober, I was not the head of my household. I wasn't. To this day, I'm not the head of my household, right? But I still have to take the lead where this area is concerned. It is not up to my family to repair the damage that I have caused. Most of us are used to trying to soothe things over. We learned that in drinking. When you've made a big mess of something, you've caused a big problem the night before, you get up and you're very quiet and sweet and loving, and we're hoping that we all forgot about whatever drama it was I caused last night. Right? We're just going to shift gears and not talk about it. And we have a tendency to want to do that with our family, but it tells me that I'm going to sit down with the family and frankly analyze the past as I now see it. Well, how do I now see it? I now see it as my character defects have played a role. I now see the damage that I've caused. So I'm going to begin to address it as a different dynamic. It says their defects may be glaring. Let me clarify. Their defects will be glaring. You just learned how to take inventory. You have a propensity to want to take everybody's inventory. And you say, oh, I see where you're being self-centered there. I see where you're being driven by fear over here. Right? Don't do that. If you do it in your mind, pray about it. Don't say those things out loud. Right? I can tell you that from personal experience.
Can I ask a question?
I'm sorry.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
What is there difference?
Makes no difference.
Okay.
We're there to discuss your stuff only. That's all. We're not there to talk about anything else.
When is their drunk?
I wouldn't sit down with them when they're currently loaded.
Okay.
Yeah, if that's what you mean. Yeah, let's wait for a sober moment to do that. Yeah, good question. So here's the last 9-step prayer. It says, so we clean house with the family, asking each morning in meditation that our Creator show us the way of patience, tolerance, kindliness, and love. You might want to write that on a sticky note and slap it on your bathroom mirror. These are the kind of things that I need to be looking at on a consistent basis. It tells me that the spiritual life is not a theory. I had to circle this, underline it, highlight it. We have to live it, which means I don't need to talk about it. And I like to do that. I like to get into long-winded discussions about all things that I think are wonderful, but I'm not able to live up to them. So it's always going to be more important for the people around me to see a demonstration of my feet moving than my mouth running. Make sense? Yeah. They've been listening to me talk about all kinds of things for a number of years, and they sort of quietly roll their eyes and yeah. And it gives me a warning. We should not talk incessantly to them about spiritual matters. Our behavior will convince them more than our words. We talked about that earlier. This is a program of action, not a program of talking or thinking. Some of us, when we get this spiritual experience, these spiritual awakenings, we have a tendency to want to pull everybody in with it and tell them how wonderful it is, and they may or may not be interested. Right? This is a program of attraction, not promotion. So I have to get kind of clear on stuff like that. And it tells me there's some wrongs that I may not be able to right. And you're going to hear the question, what do we do about somebody who's in prison for a lifetime and I can't get in front of them to make amends? What do I do about my father who's passed away and I need to make amends to him? What do I do about people I don't know where they are? I can tell you this, there is always an action to take. Always, always, always. There are graveside amends. There are letters you can write. Don't let yourself off the hook and deny yourself the freedom based on an excuse. Right? There's a lot of stories, and you probably heard John talk about it when he was here last year about doing a graveside amends with his father and the freedom that he found in that. It gives me goosebumps just thinking about it. It's pretty cool. The last line in that paragraph says, as God's people, we stand on our feet. We don't crawl before anyone. Right? This is a process of growing up. It's about ownership of my mistakes. It's about rectifying the past and getting on a different path with spiritual principles. But I'm not there to grovel for your forgiveness. I'm there to right my wrong and move down the road to the next one. And if you need to take a list and check people off your list to keep track of it, do it. If you want to write it on note cards, do it. Whatever your process is, just do it. Don't get into the debate about this way's right and this way's wrong. Make the amends and move it down the road. The end. And it goes on to talk about the 9-step promises. And these are the promises that we see written on the walls a lot of times in the AA meetings. And they don't tell you these are the 9th step promises. They call them, I don't know what they call them, the promises of AA. They're not the promises of AA. You don't get them from sitting in a meeting. You get them as a direct result of making the amends and doing the step that correlates with the promises. It's very confusing to a newcomer who sits there and says, well, I don't know a new freedom and a new happiness. Well, no, you don't, darling, because you hadn't done the work. And that's okay, but we need to explain to these people what this stuff is about. There's promises with every step, but I've got to take the action necessary. Will not regret the past nor wish to shut the door on it. Why? Because I've handled my business. I've grown up a bit. When I lay my head down at night, there can't be anything standing between me and God. Nothing. So if I've wronged somebody, I better right it. Because it's not worth my sobriety. That arrogance is absolutely not worth it. It goes on to say our whole attitude and outlook upon life will change. That's the goal of recovery. See, everything shifted when I had a shot of bourbon. Everything shifted. The way I thought, the way I felt, the way I reacted to life. Did you? I could get happy just being in the liquor store. I could be 10 times more pleasant just being in there and knowing that I was about to drink. Right? You could cut in front of me in line and I'm like, go ahead, sweetie. You're fine. You're here. Today I'll knock you down, but back then, I wouldn't knock you down. Probably. But I could get happy just knowing that relief was on the way. I better get the same effect from the steps or I'll walk. It's the experience of most of us. The seriousness of our alcoholism and the seriousness of that malady in our spirit is so great that if you remove the only solution, you better, by God, replace it with something. And this is what this is about. I begin to have a whole new attitude and a whole new outlook on life. When it talks about the promises are being fulfilled among us, it says sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. There are people that are going to experience an overwhelming change in their spirit. They're going to call it a spiritual awakening. Bill Wilson had something very similar to this, or had something exactly like this, rather. Dr. Bob experienced a much more gradual, slower spiritual awakening. They're going to call that in the back of the book of the educational variety. Either one is fine. It doesn't matter. Some of us are going to come into it quickly. Some of us will come into it slowly. But it continues to tell me they will always materialize, which means even you, right? If we work for them. There's always a contingency. I will get these things when I do these things. Right? There's good promises in the book and there's bad promises. They tell me what happens when I work the steps. It tells me what happens when I shortchange myself. So it's completely up to me. There's a responsibility that I have for my own sobriety. One of my biggest pet peeves is women who come to me and say, I think you're kind of hardcore. I think you're a little rigid and I want you to be my sponsor because I need somebody to push me. I need somebody to stand on my neck and tell me what to do and make me do it. And I said, you're talking to the wrong woman. This is your responsibility. This is your sobriety. I don't have time nor the desire to stand on your neck and make you do this. You don't want to do it? Bye. I love you. Bye. This is your responsibility. I hate that they changed. I shouldn't say that. That's not nice. I wish they hadn't changed from the first edition. We were speaking about this last night. In the chapter Working with Others, the verbiage said you. They addressed you personally, your responsibility to work with others, your responsibility to carry the message, your responsibility to sponsor. Somehow we've taken a little back seat to that. Well, the people at the group are doing it, so it's okay. No, you do it. The book says that's what we do. Make sense? Why did I go off on a tangent? Why didn't you stop me? I derailed.
This is so great.
I mean, does anybody else have a brain that like it catches every train? It just hooks a left. That just happened in live time. Anyway, do we need to take a break? Go back to 10. Okay, cool.
Thank you.